next Seatails guest is Mr. Gene Dowd. Welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a little bit briefly about your boating history?
Well, I've been boating over 30 years. In that 30 years, I started sailing 13-foot sailboats, went to 19, 25, 28, 34, and finally decided to switch to a 41-foot powerboat. I've sailed the local waters, I've sailed the East Coast Long Island waters, and I've sailed the Caribbean, including coming up from Panama to Fort Lauderdale, and Fort Lauderdale to St. Thomas.
I see. I understand you have a Seatail for us, a true story with a safety message. Could you tell us about that?
Yes, I do. I have one that, the one that just doesn't leave me alone, one that bothers me, and it really, I think it should be gotten across to everybody. We were going out on a day like this, very pleasant day, a little bit of a wind in the powerboat about 2 years ago. And as we're going out past the east end of the breaker here, there was enough surf for the surfers to be having a good time. And we looked over, watched the surface, and there's a man standing in a small powerboat, a small outboard, waving. And as he's waving, I'm wondering what he's waving at, because in front of me, 3, 4, 5, 6 boats had passed right on by him. And he's still waving, and then he starts to scream. So I go over to find out what's wrong. And by this time, we're about 50 yards outside of the breakers. He says his motor's conked out and he needs help. So he pulled off the beach, or pulled out of it. I look down from my boat into his. He's got a wife and a 6-month-old baby in her arms. And I said, okay, throw me a line and I'll get you out of here. Now I had to work from the bow of my boat because of the proximity of the beach. So I didn't have a bow line. I didn't have a line to throw him. So I asked for his line. He says, I don't have a line. I says, have you called Harbor Patrol? He says, I don't have a radio. I said, well, you know, drop your hook so I can get myself organized. I don't have a hook.
Hook being an anchor for our non-boating friends.
I said, so for crying out loud, would you put your safety jackets on? He says, we don't have any safety jackets. So I get my wife to immediately run aft, get a line, bring it forward, and after 2 or 3 tries, because of we're now in the swells, we get tied to him, and because of being so close to the beach, I couldn't turn my boat around. I had to go in, bow first, and back out. So now I'm backing out with the weather in back of me, pulling him off a little bit at a time, while his wife is standing in the boat, standing upright in this little boat with the child in her arms, screaming and hollering to where there was just no control on that boat. Everything went wrong. First thing, is he went out with no equipment at all. He hadn't checked his engine prior to his going out. He admitted while he was out there that this was the first time he had the engine in the water for a couple of years. Pardon me, he took a wife and a baby with him. And on
basically a trial run.
On a trial run.
Yeah.
He's out in the swells in a small boat, and a small boat's not all that stable in the first place when you get out there. And the last thing you do when you're out in the swells is raise your center of gravity so that by standing, so that you tend to tip it even further. So to go out unprepared like that, to go out not knowing what you're doing, to go out and do everything wrong, and go out without any equipment, is not my idea of safe boating. And,
well, a lot of people just don't realize that. They just think, well, I've got the boat, now I'm going to the islands. And some people might ask, how do you make it move? You know, how do you start the engine? Oh, I don't care about how to operate the radio, I'll figure that one out.
Well, I've had similar experiences, and it's true. A lot of people think you can get in a boat much the same as they get into a new automobile and just take off. And if anything happens, I pull into a gas station. Not so. I had fortunately, this experience ended safely. We backed them off the beach. The Harbor Patrol came out, picked them up, and took them in. I never heard any more about it, thanks or whatever. But anyway, just the look on a woman's face was enough to know I did the right thing. Well, a similar instance, just as stupid. We're out in the fog on our way to Anacapa, and we hear this roar come up, and there's an outboard motorboat coming up, outboard powerboat, and the fellow comes alongside in a deep fog where maybe the visibility was 50 feet. We had our radar going. And he says, which way to Anacapa? And I said, have you got your chart? And I'll give you the course. He says, no, I don't have any charts. And what am I going to tell him at that time? We're in the middle of the channel. I said, head for the horn. You hear the horn? I said, that's the east end of Anacapa. Head for the horn.
And as you know, sound is hard to pick up on out there.
So another case of being unprepared. He just leaned on me like he would have somebody along the side of the road or a gas station to give him the directions. And he didn't even have the rudimentary equipment on board to get to where he was going, and in a heavy fog too. So it's a matter of not having the right equipment, not respecting the ocean out there. And respecting the ocean's a piece of cake because you know what it is. It's standard. It's not going to change. You have to be ready for it. And if you don't have the right equipment, you're just not ready for it.
I would say too that people look around in the harbor here, and they see how calm it is day after day, or along the beach. Little waves come in, but it always looks nice.
Right.
And the ocean, once you get away from the shore, is a totally different animal. And people don't realize that. They'll take a little windsurfer and try to go to Anacapa and out to the islands, and hey, it works fine here and close to shore. It'll work out the ocean. It floats. So I would say education is a key cornerstone to safety.
Absolutely.
And being prepared.
90% of the time, the boat will outlast you if you've taken good care of the boat.
Yeah, and if you're prepared. Well, I'll tell you what, we have about a half a minute left.
Okay.
And I'd like to say that I appreciate you and all the members of Pacific Corinthian Yacht Club here, which is a beautiful yacht club.
Thank you.
The facilities here are tremendous. I know you have a jacuzzi, a pool, which makes it more of a family-orientated yacht club.
That's what it was designed for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think this is really beautiful, and I'd like to thank you and all the members for coming and doing these shows.
You're welcome. My
so
pleasure.
I appreciate it.